Hello, welcome to Unyielding Voices, our second episode. My name is Merab Ingabire and I am your host. Together with me is Toko.
Godwin Toko.
Yeah, Toko is my co-host, and with us today we have a very inspiring student, young person, very powerful woman, rising woman, and we shall be talking about youth and power. Yeah. Allow me introduce Praise Aloikin.
Introduce yourself. What does Aloikin mean?
Hi guys. My name is Praise Aloikin Opoloje. I'm an Itesot. So the word Aloikin means to spread under the sun. You know, like if you harvest millet or harvest grains, you spread them under the sun to dry. So that is like to Aloikin.
So what was the context for your names?
Guys,
do you know?
We are sorry, we don't have context where I come from.
How about the other name?
The other name is the one that has more of context.
Okay.
So Opoloje is a combination, it's a statement, apology, you get? And it basically means there's a lot of war. So my great-great-great-grandfather was born during the time when the Karimajong and the Itesots were having wars of separation after the migration into Uganda. So Karimajong actually means the old people got tired, so they stayed behind, and then others continued, who became the Itesot. So apology just came from there. There's a lot of war. So over time, it just became apology.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you first. You are now known more as an activist.
Yeah.
Is that something that runs like in family? If you trace like your family, relations, parents, mothers, whichever, going maybe say like as far as you can stretch. Do you think there were other activists that you've had on in your family, or this is just something that you're like the trailblazer as far as the family is concerned?
I don't think I'm activist depends on how we define what activist is. If we are going on people who fight for the rights of other people or for if I think back, I can see a few people, though they were not on the limelight and they were fighting within. My grandmother, I have run a campaign one time soliciting for money for her. She passed on sadly 2 days ago.
Oh,
may her soul rest in peace. For Toko who doesn't believe in God, I wonder what she will say. Let her rot, let her, I don't know.
But yeah, may her soul rest in peace.
So my grandma had been through quite a number of abusive marriages. But she had the courage to always move out of those relationships and forge new relationships. Irregardless of conversations like, oh, women, settle down in that one marriage. She spoke up for herself.
I imagine it was a big thing back then.
Yeah, it was.
Still a big thing now.
It may not be so big
divorce
now.
Even now, it's still a big thing that the average person in an abusive relationship stays there. Of course, not as it was bad back then. So I'm just saying that if it is still a problem today, it must have been.
How about then?
Double, maybe 10 times more a problem back then.
I actually have an interesting story with her. So when she gets sick, they bring her to Mulago here. And I had taken some time without seeing her. I'd seen her the other Christmas. So I come and check on her. She's like, oh, Praise, how are you? You're fine. They told me you moved naked.
Oh.
And then I was like, so I was like so confused. What is she going to say? And she's like, I'm so proud of you. You're so brave. And I know the fight you're fighting and you're going to win that fight. So I think it runs through the family really, because for the risks I've taken and the actions I've taken, especially on my dad's side, I feel it's in my dad's side. I've not received scolding or anything of the sort. You actually go back home and they're like,
that's contrary to what most...
On my mom's side, they called me home to lay hands on me because I was demon possessed.
Wow.
So you can understand. But on my dad's side, they've always been, assertive people speaking out for themselves and things that they believe in.
So you've talked about the naked, being naked. And can we talk about that? How did you get to organizing a naked protest, and why did you choose
to be naked?
Nudity as a tactic for you?
I wanted to throw a joke there, but
okay.
To annoy Toko. But so the whole idea of the nude protest happened in prison. So after we get arrested, we are sitting there and idling during our Sunday.
Why were you arrested?
I'm assuming everyone knows me because I'm like famous around town.
Okay, I see.
So we were arrested for the march to Parliament on 23rd July when we're marching against the corruption in Parliament after Agora did that major exhibition and we all got pissed about it.
Yeah.
So
you
we
didn't get pissed about the exhibition, but about the corruption, right?
yeah.
The issue. Okay.
Yeah, context.
Yeah, about the whole corruption thing, and we mobilized around it and march.
Okay.
So we march, we get arrested. Over 100 young people get arrested.
About
and
135.
Yeah.
From my count, yes.
And I think the ladies were about 12 ladies. So we are in prison now, you know, and we are like, this can't be the end, you know, this just can't be a one-time thing, like an event and oof, now let's go back to our homes and keep quiet and stuff like that. What can we do? And we are trying to revisit quite a number of ways women can come together and cause change and build, but in a protest way, because that's our style of speaking against the different injustices. So we are like, something that is so feminine would be to curse. And you know, like how it is in our traditional culture,
Yes.
that when a woman is angry or stuff like that, she shows her nakedness and strips. And personally, growing up, my mama said it quite a number of times, like, I don't know if you guys want me to undress so you can know that I'm actually angry. Something like that. So like, cool, we shall do that. So we get out of prison, we have the plan, it's well laid out, and funny, you see how controversial that idea is? Like, the ladies were ready. They had reservations, like, I think the idea was to strip completely naked. Then we kept putting, you know, like, okay, no, we shall put on, at least me, I'll come in a niqab, me, I'll come in my bra. They're like, cool, okay, no problem. But the whole semblance of, you took a piece of cloth off your body.
Okay.
So when we came out of prison, things changed. You guys, you know, people ask you, how long were you in prison? 7, 8 days. I mean, get behind me. But being in prison even for one day can change your entire perspective.
That's true.
You get?
That's true. Yeah.
So you finally get the prison. You know, one day in prison, you still have the adrenaline of the protest, and 8 days, you're not even sure you're going to get the bail. Then they give you the bail. Then you come out, and then the magistrate in court is like, don't do anything bad. And then your family comes in giving you opinions. Don't dare, if they get you, this is the So ladies got a bit cold, and they were scared to go back there. And as someone who has been there, I totally understand why they felt like that. Okay. But shortly after that, the Chitezi saga happened. Guys, I have a friend of mine, she's called Nora. I feel like when things anger us, we call each other immediately, like, Nora, have you seen this thing? Should we just let it go? No, we just can't let it go. Like, someone has to do something about it. The president had pretended nothing had happened. He had not even made a statement about it for some days. And people were like anticipating, what will he say? He was moving around, I think, throwing Thanksgiving parties around the same time. Yes. The ED of KCCA was not being held accountable at any level. We're like, no, we have to do something. I think this is a time to do the nude protest. It will not just symbolize the cursing ceremony, but it will also show how much we have been stripped of our dignity, that people can die and be buried under rubbish because people let it happen, and these people are, are moving on with their lives and no one is being held accountable. So we tried to mobilize, reach out to the ladies for different reasons. Some that I've mentioned here, they were like, no, guys, not now, not now. So we ended up 3 ladies. Myself, Nora, and Kemi Toma. So that day in the morning, we are we have the idea, we shall paint our bodies black, yellow, red, and write different things on them, end corruption, stuff like that. And we somehow mobilized within ourselves for the funds that were needed for that, and a few people that we knew, that support the struggle, the way we do. Yeah, and then we protested naked.
So the thing is, that was not the first nude protest in Uganda. So there were these ladies in Amuro who stripped naked.
For land?
Yeah,
I think I read somewhere that the minister died afterwards.
Yeah, we actually, so Light Uganda did organize with this community. So like we had done trainings with the community and, shared a little bit of tactics that you can use to actually resist oppression. And so, but we did not tell them to do that. Yeah, we didn't even expect it to happen. Yeah. But then the land struggles in Amuru. People were dying. People homes were being burnt. Yeah. And so it got to a point where the mothers, the old women, it's not just young girls stripping, it was mothers. Old mothers. So, and culturally, it's a curse to see your mother's nakedness. Yes. And they were very strategic. So they knew the minister was coming. to that place. And so they were like, this is the moment.
This is the moment.
This is the moment where we strip naked. And they stripped naked. They were like, we curse you, get out of our land. They stripped naked, and the minister was like, oh, I can't see, I can't look at this. And immediately they turned their vehicles and left. But remember, in that culture, they believe that you are not supposed to see the body of your mother, of an older woman.
Of an older woman.
Yes. So looking at that, they knew that the power that their bodies had, even though they were being killed and doing all these things to them, they knew that with their bodies, they would fight back without guns, without nothing. They would fight back with their bodies.
They have.
So they use their bodies as a weapon, essentially.
So, they're not the only ones.
Yeah.
There was definitely Stella Nyazi. I think Stella Nyazi actually got much more attention.
Publicity.
I was at university at Mutual Hall that day when Stella Nyazi was stripping. And people were saying, oh, there's a movie, there's a live movie going on at Maiza. I'm not a fan of movies, so I didn't go. But at some point, I watched on TV what happened. And I know that she was protesting against Professor Mahmoud Mabdani, Maiza, whom she said was trying to hound her out, push her out of teaching space. And of course, eventually she left the university and is in exile. I also know that Mamdani eventually left. So, praise for me, I want to know, like, at some point when you're planning this, whether it was in prison, in the aftermath of prison, did you guys ever look at those other naked protests and say, well, the women in Namuru got the minister dead, we need someone dead.
Maybe Anita would die.
Did that ever cross your mind?
So initially, like, it's not the idea, like, oh, let's do something like these people did, you get?
Okay.
But when I came out personally out of prison and I was trying to, because I have a partner, and I was trying to explain to him that there is this idea, we're going to do this. And he's like, he reads a lot. So it's like, yeah, actually, these women have done it before. These have done it before. These are. So for me, it compounded the idea even more. He picked examples even outside Africa. And I was like, wow. So there's nothing new even under the sun. Like, these are the same things happening over and over again.
Yeah. Okay. Then, now, the aftermath of the protest.
Yeah.
A very patriarchal society, culture stereotypes, a university student, everyone assumes they've seen you naked.
Yeah.
They
don't assume. They have
your naked pictures are all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Free nudes. So when I release nudes now, they do
not
not
matter. If someone said, I'll release your nudes for them, they just say, let me just go online.
Nude protest.
And then they go. So did that somehow affect you in any way, or were you psychologically prepared for that?
Yeah. So,
especially from the context of being a student.
Yeah. So most times before I take actions, I have a mini battle within my head. And once I defeat that mini battle within my head, I've conquered that level of fear. And it makes me mentally prepared for some of these things. Okay. You get? If we go back to the 23rd March, the March to Parliament, where I was fully clothed, in that, my greatest fear then was getting shot and dying, you know? And once I overcame that fear, I went to the street. I was beaten. I went to jail, and people kept saying, "Oh God, you're smiling. Was everything okay?" But for me, it was okay. I've not died. Like, guys, this is a better reality than the one my head had sort of made peace with. You know, since I have a daughter whom I love so dearly, and she's just young. So when it came to the nude protest, you guys, I had debated all the pros and cons. I was seeing my pastor, my mom, my friends, my classmates, and I conquered that fear already, you know? And I was like, yes, they're going to say A, B, C, D. Definitely, they're going to say things about my body I've never even noticed, and they'll mention them and highlight them. And it's a patriarchal society, so definitely. But there is a greater cause. So I push that narrative in my head until I believe it. So by the time I do it, I've conquered that first level of fear. So people will speak, they'll say that, because there are times even actually when after we had gotten done with the protest, we have come out, I think there were some boats that were just put on our, you know, on the backs of our necks to keep pushing that. So you'd even wake up and say, oh, the sun is beautiful today. Don't say anything, you're a nude protester. So what I would do, under that comment, I get one of the beautiful nude photos and I put it under there. So you're going to see it or see it anyway. And the beauty is, regardless of whether you're posting the photo to troll me or to say I'm a nude protester, the message was written on my body, so it cuts across.
Yeah.
So I was mentally prepared. Did I reach some points and break? I think I didn't have that space. And I think that's the important conversation we need to have as activists, where you have a society around you of people willing to rush to your aid. You get? Your family, not always your family, but that family you create for yourself, your friends. For example, I mentioned my partner, he's very supportive. Organizations like Solidarity, Mempro, Agora, willing to always be there. So you don't have the space to sit back and be like, oh my God, why did I do this? I think I'm going to, you get that kind of thing. So I didn't have the space for that. And a few days later, it got so dramatic. Something came in, though it's not my story to share. I didn't have the time to feel depressed.
I think it's in the previous episode we talked about the importance of having a community, a support system. I think it's very important. When people just minimize the time you've been in jail because maybe they've been there longer, it's not right.
It's not right,
it's just 30 minutes in jail. Like, you don't really know what it does to someone. And I know that you also are students, a law student at Makerere University. So would you like to share about organizing as a student, even just really at the university? And also your work with the people, where you're like a co-founder and also a member.
So all the prior protests I've had, I would like to say I did not intentionally mobilize university students. It was just an open call to whoever was on X and could catch my video and come and protest, come and do this. The second march, which was a nude protest, was more internal among the people I had protested with already, you get? But now, when we got out of that and we're like, okay, how do we crystallize this, We had some people branch off from an organization, some people do this. So how, like I already mentioned, how do we make this a movement and not just events like Mujet protesting, get people run actions, stuff like that. But do people understand the reason why they're protesting, why they're doing these things? So that's how we coined the whole idea of the We the People thing. So that I sound cool, I'll tell you where We the People comes from.
Yes, please.
I think Toko knows by now. But We the People is you should know. You know everything. So We the People is from the preamble in our constitution, where it says, We the people of Uganda, recalling our history, going down, we shall never be in this situation, we shall fight to, and henceforth we make this constitution. So that's where it comes from, We the People. And we run on on our first article, the one of power belonging to the people. So all we do is trying to make people stand in that power. Now, coming to student mobilizing. So we are currently working on a project, where we realize that, university students for such a long time have been at the helm of change. Look at the story in South Africa. I've been reading about Zambia. There's a book club we have in Solidarity, Uganda. I read that book in 1 hour. It was so interesting, the New Blood book. And realize young people, students, are usually the ones that carry the struggles on their backs. And also it's an easier structure to mobilize with, because it's easy. People have been there, we say, let's meet here. We have been having debates, for example, in Makerere, with the Makerere Debating Union, with other universities, and it has always been easy to mobilize. But we just come, have a one-off topic, people go back to their homes. So the whole idea of this project we are working on is that people can be organized within a university, and the intention is known from the word go. This is where we get people, teach them about their human rights, teach them about their civil responsibilities, but also how they can use non-violence resistance to, foster accountability and the change that they desire. Is it transition in power? Is it that immediate problem you have? Girls in your community don't have pads and stuff like that, and someone is responsible. Is it climate change? Stuff like that. So my experience in mobilizing students is one this. Most times, especially, I'm going to speak for my university where my university is a public university that invites people from all dockets of this country, almost everywhere, you get? Because it's fairly one of the cheapest universities. If I'm not even, it's the cheapest university we have in the country. So it's a little easier to mobilize there because people come from societies where people have actually suffered these things. When you talk about grabbing land, probably their mother, father has experienced that. When you talk about for example, I come from Palisa. When you talk about early marriages, when you talk about going to a hospital and you're not having the medical equipment you need to give, but I know that because I've experienced that firsthand. So a bit easier to mobilize. And if you even read the history of Uganda and protests and movements, there have been more in Makerere University than any other university. So when it comes to more bougie universities of the cool kids, probably children of the people that steal our money, it's hard to mobilize there because they don't experience these things. They don't know these things firsthand. You get? It takes a longer journey to try to cause them to empathize with the people that have actually suffered these things. But we see that trend has kept changing in Makerere. Kids no longer protest, because now there's another evil eating us up, the youth generally, and that is trying to benefit from the patronage that this government has created. That's why I see kids now are not just running for political positions to change or create, greater impact. It's now political careerism. You get?
I would think that's a bit of there's that point.
Yeah.
But that's not the whole picture. The whole picture could be that even generally Ugandans are protesting maybe less than they did.
Yeah, the
maybe
whole picture.
Maybe like if you look at 2011 and the walk to work protests, the Mavida riots, the Kayunga riots. Of course, they begin as protests, but then of course they escalate into riots.
Yes.
So what I think is that what happened at Makerere is that there's someone called Nawango who became the vice chancellor, who basically thinks that protesting is hooliganism. Protesting shouldn't happen, and it's not just the students. He has stopped from protesting. I know for a fact that he has stopped teaching staff, non-teaching staff from as little as holding meetings. Yeah. So I want to be hard on the students and say, you guys are not protesting, but I also want to know that I also want to be alive to the fact that the ramifications, of course, illegally are quite up there. And I'll tell you this.
Was it any better though?
Yes.
Like, okay, maybe Nawangwe we didn't have a high-handed Nawangwe, but generally, like, was the environment more welcoming?
Not
for example, me, I think
per se, but I can say that about let's
general.
talk about,
It's
the
not
careerism.
just the university, because we see that the grip of oppression
is getting tighter.
Yeah, it's tighter just generally in the country. So what is happening in the country still goes down to these public universities.
And you see,
because these guys are appointed by the people in power. So what do you expect?
Exactly. If you talk about political careerism, when you talk about most of the younger members of parliament or ministers now who were at Makerere over the last maybe 15 years period, you find that most of them were not NRM leaning. They were opposition while at Makerere. Firebrand, FDC Firebrand, it's called the Young Uganda Democrats, UID. And they come out and eventually they cross over. So it's not a new phenomenon. Yeah. It has always been there. You get,
Okay. So I'll still speak from my experience.
Okay.
And so this is for me my experience. And I joined the university, I think around 4 years ago, 3 years ago. Though I met kids, I met students who seemed irrespective of, the high-handedness of Nawangwe. They were ready and willing to do anything. Are they expelled? They don't care. Like, they are willing to do anything. Now, most of those young people, some are now NRM leaning and affiliated, and they're running in their different constituencies for youth MP and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And for me, this is what it looks like in the university. Because remember, university is a place of mobilizing. I think we all agree with that. It's an easier place to mobilize. Yes. It's an easier place to call people together. But once there are like 1,000 loopholes people can draw into whoever is trying to mobilize them, like, today you claimed you were here in Noop and you were saying this government is a junta and they're everything. But tomorrow, and the next second, you're here with Balaam shaking hands and on the campaign trail of Muhoozi. So they start to say, yeah, indeed, these guys are here for the money. Like, these guys are here for this thing. So it has been such a hurdle mobilizing people when they think why you're doing these things is for the money that comes out of it.
So I think there's a merger many times between activism and politics. I trust a lot of activists. I don't trust any politician. You get it? So because a lot of times people who speak up, people who want political positions within the university will use activism as a way to get
or like someone protests once, twice, the next thing they are running for youth.
So
and they must get arrested.
If you notice that around time when I was at the university, around election time, everyone will become a fighter. Even the most meek
fight
of the people, I'm going to fight, I'm going to do all this. Now, from what I know is that I think activists are too quick to embrace everyone the Bible says anyone who calls me Lord, Lord, Lord should be on our side. But I think it should be a bit different for activists. That when people, it shouldn't be the case that it is now, like it is now for most university students, that if I want to be a guild president, many times someone wants to be a guild president or a GRC, is the person who is not going to stop there. The person who is looking at becoming a member of parliament, the person looking at becoming a youth MP, members of National Youth Council and all that. So it's like a trajectory. For them, they look at it as a nursery bed. And to some extent, they're right. If you count the number of big names, in Ugandan politics, a number of them were students, leaders of the day. Now, so for them, because they see it that way, they are going to come, and they know that to win a political position at Makerere, I must not associate with the NRM. So even when they associate with NRM, they are going to hide that for the moment they are there. But again, it is not a Makerere thing. Also look at the opposition of Uganda generally. Yeah, there are so many people who have contested and won tickets and are members of parliament now under NUP. But if you dig a bit of their history, they used to contest under NRM. There are some people who have won tickets under NRM, but if you dig a bit of their background, they used to contest under FDC, under Democratic Party. I feel like it's a question of politicians. Politicians are not the most trustable people. So each time we think that activists are politicians or politicians are activists, I think we make a mistake. So that's where I see the Makerere problem. They are genuine activists at Makerere. Sometimes those activists become politicians. Yeah, it's not always the case that they are there to
and
be
most
activists.
times lose their way after becoming
but then
politicians.
sometimes there's so many people, the wolf in sheepskin. The wolf knows that if it wears the sheepskin, it can mingle with the sheep. So it's easy. It's easier than chasing around, looking for sheep, wherever. Yet you can just wear sheepskin and then get within the thick of the sheep and then pick your target. Yes, the flock of the sheep and pick your target. So that's me how I see it.
Yeah, that's a very good conversation. I want you to, when people say youth power, what does it mean to you? What does youth having power actually mean?
Okay, now let me just tell you what it looks like for me. We know that Uganda's population, 75% of it is young people, but still youth are treated as a minority group and are given affirmative positions, e.g. youth MP. You get it? When you look at the actual, for example, cabinet, ministers, when you look at what the demographics of parliament looks like, young people are still the minority. That doesn't make sense. If we are saying democracy is a representation, it should be like a representation of the majority over the minority. Now, there are many definitions of what it is, but let's use that one. You realize that if young people are the majority but still treated as the minority, definitely there is a problem in there. And you may want to say, guys, but it doesn't matter, let the old people rule. But the product of having these people in power is mismatched policies that don't align with the needs of these young people. You understand? Because they do not relate. We have things like AI coming on, technology coming on, and we still lag behind. You see the bureaucracy in the different systems where we go. They say, apply online. We have an online version of this. You apply online, but when you go physically, you repeat everything that you did, out there. But also, if you look at issues like the problems in the country, unemployment, whom do they affect the most? The young people. What are the solutions the government designs? Okay, let's give you PDM. When you look at PDM, how does it work? Does it actually work? No, it's not actually working because it does not align with the things or the ways that these young people could make money within that period of time. Look at the other solutions they have. Okay, let's make partnerships with United Arab Emirates and have young people go out there to do work, which is modern day slavery. You understand?
Here's the thing, Praise.
Yes.
I think every system of oppression works like that. The black in South Africa were over 80%. The whites were less than 20%. In fact, all other races were less than 20%. But the whites alone owned about 87% of the land.
Exactly.
You get, and of course, land at that time, even today to a good extent, is the main factor of production. Any system, when you talk about patriarchy, you find that in Uganda, I think women are slightly more than men. But what the system does is that it locks out the majority. And then it picks people within the minority to speak for the majority. But they must be people who are made, whose mind is conditioned
within that system of operation.
So in South Africa, for instance, South Africans didn't have, it was the white only who would vote.
Yes.
But they had black representatives, colored representative, I think Indian representative in parliament who were voted. No, they were voted by black people, but they had to be white. You get it? Like the blacks could vote a white person to represent them on different committees.
Yes.
The colored people could vote a person to represent them. But the colored person, the person representing the color, that to be a white person.
Yes.
Same for the black people. So I see that is what is the case with the Ugandan youth today. My fear with the argument that more youths in Ugandan parliament, more youths in Ugandan cabinet will translate to better opportunities for the youth is that may not be the case.
Yeah, but that's the beginning point. That's like the baseline.
The age of Uganda's parliament, last time I checked, was about 45. Yeah? 45 is really young.
That's the average age.
The average age of MPs. There's some very young, I think the youngest MP in parliament is about 26, 27. Yeah? There's some very young MPs there. Now, the problem for me with that argument, why I always don't buy it, is that if you say today that policies are changed to allow more youth in parliament, the youth who are going to go to parliament are most likely going to be the youth who don't think about youth issues like you do. They are the ones who are going to think about it from the angle of the big old people, because they will think PDM. You've seen the youth MPs, the National Youth Council, students, it's called UNSA, the Uganda National Students Association, that recently endorsed President Museveni to another term in office. What happens is that it's because those youth now get to a point where their survival depends on keeping the system and affiliating with it, even if it is to the exclusion and detriment of the young people whom they should represent.
Now, I agree with you, but this is it. My point is not that there should be an amendment saying, okay, let us have more young people. My issue is, if statistically, I'm not saying go change it, but that's what it looks like. You know, when these are the majority of the people, then there's an issue. Why aren't these people? Because when we say most times like, oh, the youth in the country, that's literally 75%. It is the country. You get that? It is the country.
That's true.
So why do we always say the youth? So why aren't these Ugandans at the middle of the issues that affect them? You know,
I think it's
where policies are made, where money is distributed. Why aren't they there? Now we can go into the conversation of what my second point of what youth power looks like to me. Yeah. Now, like, are the people now representing, are they just youth by number and age, or are they youth in how they relate to the issues that affect young people genuinely and want change to happen? So how do we get, now like the Zambian movement I told you about, the Youth for Parliament, how do you ensure that even the young people that are holding these places of power, who are in institutions like UNSA, who are in institutions like NYC, are not just foot soldiers of the government? They're actually young people able to hold leaders accountable, you know? And that's why for us at We the People, we believe in education so much and rooting out and supporting young people that have this mindset and share those values at hand. How do you get these young people now and ensure that they want to take up those positions? Let's say, for example, an allowance happened somewhere and it was okay for these young people to take up those positions. Would they be the actual right young people to get there? You understand? So it goes back to the article 1 where I told you, are these people able to stand in their power? That when we talk about youth representation, we're not saying, okay, that one just went there because, you know, they were affiliated to NRM, they had the money to campaign, their father is probably the richest guy in the village, could, you know, do that for them. No. When we say youth representation, we speak the heart of the people. So that's what for me youth power looks like, holding leaders accountable fearlessly. But now let's leave people who are holding political positions. Let's go to an everyday individual like me and you, who may not be interested in running for office or something like that. Do they understand what their rights are? Do they understand what their role is? Because most times there are rights and people think those rights are going to fall off a mango tree and they have no role in playing that. And then we have the term activist, where they classify you praise as activist, and it's both an advantage and a disadvantage, because they expect you to fight all problems in the country and dictate how you fight those problems, but it also pushes them back. And they're like, okay, whenever everything, maybe talk, let's wait for Agora. Guys in Agora, when are you fighting about this issue? Guys, you get, so they take away that agency from themselves. So for me, youth power looks like individual agency to, you know, utilize all different mechanisms possible to fight the injustices you face in your day-to-day life. You get?
Yeah, I think the problem is like really systemic, and it's very you can't solve it by having more people in parliament, for example. And if you just go back to where we come from, our homes, we are taught you have to respect elders. You don't question elders. You know, you don't talk back to elders. And it is like a system of gerontocracy where the old
People
call the
wise.
shots and you have to follow.
Yeah.
So it's not just about parliament, it's about just really our communities.
day.
How do we break this system?
Yeah.
How do we find our voice?
Yeah.
Because you can't say doing things for us without us.
Exactly.
You understand? You're
I was having
saying
a conversation with a friend. We're trying to design a project, and he said something like, let us take these conversations to the people. And I'm like, no, why not invite those people where these conversations are being had? Because most times we say, we are taking this conversation. Okay, yeah, now you Toko could come and debate that. But what I mean is when someone says we are taking a conversation is, now let's take, for example, issues that have happened to parliament to them. That's good. But what's better is involving these people in the conversations happening in parliament, in the word go, and not just taking to them already agreed on policies. You know, when the process is already at the end and you're like, but now I've passed the coffee bill, now you protest or do whatever.
it's very, very important to like take leadership from people who are actually affected by these issues.
It's very
you can't
true.
think that you know the solutions to my problem without involving me. So until youth are involved, until those that are really affected are put at the front to find their own solutions, then we shall just have the same problems happening, you know, over and over again, and they will say they have youth programs, but
they are not working. Because there's an
they didn't work for us because you didn't involve us.
There's an assumption that the person suffering the problem can't articulate their or don't understand their, okay, they could have articulation issues, but they know the problem because they suffer it daily. But
they
how
say
much
that
more
they are
are
the
they
voice
of their voice?
of their voiceless, but there is no one without a voice. I mean, we all have voices.
I know, what do you mean? Because like when that coffee bill saga happened, we went to Bukoma and Simbe to run like, you know, a street preaching thing there, something that one of the tools that we use, like you go on the street with your megaphone, you speak about an issue, people mobilize, and you know, you start going back and forth, explaining, blah, 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 yeah, till they understand. And we went there, guys, with the coffee bill, you know, with the anger you've come with from Kampala, the coffee bill is the worst thing that ever happened, no. And you're going there. And these guys told us, that coffee bill doesn't affect us
nothing
in any way.
Yeah.
That coffee bill only affects those rich guys who have monopolized the coffee farming. You understand? Because for us, when we harvest our coffee, they're going to determine what the price is. It's where the power lies. You understand? That's where the power lies. And they're actually happy because this bill weakens them and gives them some sort of power and agency over these rich guys who have monopolized this. Guys, for a second there we first stammered. We're like, maybe it's a sample of a few people. Let's move ahead and find. And the whole chain was just that. So for me, that was a moment of, yeah, actually, people know their problems. And when we started to shift, you'd realize their problems were something totally different, you know? But someone would have come, okay, coffee bill, plant somewhere, these are the solutions, we should go, blah. And then you take them there, people implement them because maybe, you've spoken nicely, they're trying, maybe there's lunch at that event, and they come, but they don't work in the long run.
For me, that has always been a problem with the Ugandan government, that not that they don't really, it's the thing that they don't, people are not involved in making decisions that affect them. For me, I would imagine that, and that's why for me, at an individual level, I think that a system like the one that Uganda operates, where all power is centralized around one person, is very, very dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would imagine that if there's anything in Karamoja, it should be up to the people of Karamoja to decide at that level. And to pick an MP or 5 MPs from Karamoja and bring them to Kampala and hope that they will, like I said earlier with the youth, the average Ugandan MP also becomes, in a very short period of time, if they were not, an elite so detached from their communities. Sometimes an MP is representing, Shamim Malende won parliamentary seat with about 300 and something thousand votes. So that is an MP who is expected to represent maybe like about 5,000 people or even 1 million people plus. Now, she cannot know all the problems of these people, of the people involved. My thinking has always been that the better way to govern a country like Uganda, you could say that's federalism, but you could also understand it from another angle.
Not a bad thing. Okay,
from another angle, that
okay,
I don't want to say that because the word federalism in Uganda is also many times bastardized. So the thing for me would be that, can the people of West Nile articulate their problems? When you go down to West Nile, can the people of a district like Arua articulate? When you go to Arua, can that constituency, like the problems that, so when someone sits at the Ministry of Finance in Kampala and says, bingo, I have discovered the problem in Uganda. It's lack of money. PDM is the solution. I can guarantee you that 90% of the time, you will have it going the same way you had Bonaba Gagawale, the same way you had Operation Restoration. Like it's not just about the youth and all this, but it's like a general governance problem in Uganda that so many times decisions are taken by technocrats who are so many times themselves so detached. Because, I mean, our education system.
Maybe let me come to Kampala and start my business.
You know the thing with
our
the thing with our education system. I think it's Chinua Achebe who writes about it in A Man of the People, and I think Oginga Odinga in Not Yet Uhuru. They articulate it very, very well. I would recommend people read those two books. Is that the education system that we have, the colonial education system, is designed to make you look so different from your society.
That is
you get
true.
it? Like the average educated Ugandan is embarrassed of the people to associate with where they come from.
Yes,
because it makes you feel like
accent,
you should wear suits, you should speak English, you should do what? They're eating food when you go to my village. They're eating food and they're not using fork. And for you, like what? Education has taught you that you must eat food with a fork. You mustn't touch the food. You mustn't. Okay, there are some good things that come with it. Hygiene, all this. But by and large, much of the education is meant to alienate you. So the average educated Ugandan technocrat who is going to call himself the czar of poverty and how to end it in Uganda, the decision maker, is as detached, even if he is from Bukoma Nsimbi and is making decisions about Bukoma Nsimbi. His wall fence, the cars he drives and all that, puts him in a place that he is so detached from the average person in Bukoma Nsimbi. And that's what I see all through.
I totally agree with that.
Unless we get people involved, unless we take their leadership, I think it's just going to keep happening. But even in the movements,
and that is a movement thing. The thing that much Parliament was trying to do. You know, when we say we are leaderless, we borrowed it from Kenya. Thank you. But the whole idea is, how do you spread out leadership that is not that heroic kind of leadership concentrated in
celebrity,
individuals,
celebrity and stuff like that. How is it spread across? That when you speak about this movement, you're going to see 10, 20 faces. You're going to see a village kid, you're going to see a town kid, you're going to see this kid, and they're all like part of this thing. They understand it, and it's more of issue based than who is the leader, who is. You know, people say, no, but you need a face. No, we don't need a face. Our issues that we suffer are already a face of the thing that we're trying to push for. You know, you come to Uganda, walk around those villages and see what they look like. That is the face of the issue that we are fighting for. We don't need the most articulate person to sit in front of the camera for interviews or stuff like that always, you know. That's not even where the solutions really lie, because after this beautiful interview, you're going to go to the ground and have to do the hard work at the end of the day.
Yeah, so speaking of movements and how they're structured, like how is We the People structured, and how are you navigating those challenges that you're talking about? Because I think these are realities of actually movements. We are movements that are standing against oppression and these different injustices in our communities, but we are also we are literally replicating the very system that we are standing against. Some movements, not all. So what is it that you're doing differently to make sure that the people are at the forefront of the struggles? What are you doing differently?
So one of the differences is just the thing we have been talking about here. When we go to the people, we try not to go to them with an already formalized issue like, okay, this is what you're going to be looking at. The first place we visited was Bondibujo, you know. We went green, we had made our little research about it, we knew the issue they were suffering. But when we go to the ground, we have a conversation and we start from a general point of view. You see corruption this, corruption that, and then you go down and realize the issue of the people in Bukoma and Simbis, for example, issues around cocoa growing. You know, they have never had a cocoa processing plant there since, and cocoa has been grown in Bondibujo, I think, for the past more than 50 years, but there has never been any farm, any plant, and you know, people keep coming and saying, so we try to go to the people and help people articulate their issues, you know, like, yes, they know the issue, maybe they don't know how to articulate, they don't know where to go about it, they don't know the strategies. So like I already said, we always go for non-violence resistance, you know, in respect of our context, you know. It's sad to say that in our context, for things to move, there must be some form of resistance, you understand? But if you sit back and you're like, okay, go, you know, I've had people say everyone plays their role. Yeah, thank you, we appreciate your role, but sometimes it's the actual other role. Now when people say that, most times they mean you come and sit at the table with your oppressors and they'll tell you how to assist you out of your issue. But most times that has failed for us. Most times they turn you into just a more glorified puppet who earns a little bit more than the other.
Co-opted.
Co-opted into them. So we try to show them this is what you can do. You understand? There are these options on the table. There are these options on the table. Which one are you willing to go for? Like, should we form a club of sorts here? And they're like, yeah, that works. And we are speaking to older women, women that have children, grandchildren. And they're like, yeah, even though it's protesting, we like this one, we shall do it. Because we have tried this, we have tried this, we have tried this, and it has not worked. So that's, I think, something we are doing different. But also the leaderless thing, we are doing it different. If you come to other people, there is no one, this is our head, this is our this. No. People carry out roles according to how best they can perform. Not in that, like, for example, she's the best speaker, she's going to be the first. No. Your role on the struggle. You have some IT skills, okay, you'll be doing our graphics and stuff like that. You speak better, you'll be speaking to the people, something like that. But then the dynamics change. You may be going to an area where Praise can't speak the language and she's not as articulate as she is in English. Okay, George, step in, do that. So we are leaderless and more issue-based in that kind of format. But also we are radical, guys. One of the reasons why because we had the idea, let's register, let's be an organization, stuff like that. But we feel like that is an evil that has eaten up the civil society world, where people form organizations and get comfortable. They get comfortable, guys, and they're so scared to do certain things because they fear they'll be closed the next day. And how shall we operate? But then they have funders too, whose interests they must protect. So even when we search out for funders for our projects, they must share the principles we have, Like, don't expect me not to say the word dictator when clearly everything on the book shows this guy is a dictator. Don't expect me to, cuddle and stuff like that. So we try to be more radical.
You have non-negotiables, things you don't negotiate.
We don't negotiate. We don't negotiate. For example, this one we are still struggling so hard with it as members. The whole idea of we cannot start saying we are running for political positions right now. Because in the past, that's what it has looked like. An activist comes for 2 months, then wants to run for a political position. And it's not to say you will not go there and make a difference. But we ask a few questions. Okay, we marched to parliament. We say these MPs are paid a lot. Will you reach there and refuse your salary? Will you cut it off? But also we are already saying that too many, so where will they cut off when you're also wanting to join the system? Who is that when you want to be dropped off? So why are you joining to increase the number? Yeah. So we cannot be saying we are fighting for these things and then, being part of those things. And it's also a conversation we're having, like, we are opposition and we keep saying young people, but look at you. You're sending someone back to office for their 4th term when you have young people in your organization who most times do the donkey work. So we try to see those faults or mistakes and we try to act outside them.
I think the thing is, there's that saying, was it, I don't know which book it was, but where they said that you become the thing that you set out to fight.
There's a saying that when you look into the abyss for so long, the abyss looks into you.
Yeah. So you become the monster basically that you set out to fight. I think it was Frankenstein, that book. But at the end of the day, it's the thing is that unless you have systems, you basically become. Anyone is capable of being a dictator. Like they're not born dictators. Like there are many people who are dictators and they set out to fight dictatorship. Yes. Like so many, you could go on and on and on and on, including the current president of Uganda. There are things he does that show that he's probably a dictator now. But the things he set out, the very things he set out to fight against other dictators. If you read this book, Sowing the Mustard Seed or What's Africa's Problems, that comes out clearly. But for me, I think like that also is the question that I always ask myself that. If I was in the parliament of Uganda, would I make any difference? No. It's plain. It's plain that I'm not. It's not like the parliament of Uganda lacks people
to make those decisions.
I think there are MPs in parliament who are probably some of the most brilliant Ugandans. But when they go there, the reality faces them. That in here, first of all, you're going to meet a group of people who have been conditioned as your voters to always ask for money from you, whether it's bar, your church, fundraising, school fees for their children, everything. Those are extra. They're not supposed to be your roles. But because the system knows that the system actually gives you a lot of money. But
to do that.
Yeah. But you see, it was Bob Marley who said that money is in numbers. So if you put your happiness, if you tie your happiness to numbers, to money, it never end. You'll never find it. So it becomes the case that the person who was critical and very, very good with very good ideas goes there, but then he has to pay school fees for kids. Yes, okay, I can pay for 5. Yes,
your standard of living
pay for burial. Yeah, I can pay for 5. Pay for weddings. Now it becomes the point that this person who actually articulated the problems knew them very well. Now is in a pit hole where the 100 million becomes a lifeline. Probably has a loan with a bank. Elections are coming up, and the voters, for them, they don't understand that the member of parliament has to legislate, has to appropriate. For them, they know that Omubaka Wafe, he has to come back here and bury with us, carry the coffin, mourn with us, buy the coffin, spend money at church, and all that. So it engulfs you, it entraps you. I think what well-meaning Ugandans need to do is to first change that system. First change that system and say that in a different system where things are allowed to function normally, and of course not a system that's very easy to change because it's replicated. The politics of Kenya is not very different from the politics of Uganda. The politics of MPs bribing voters is in Tanzania. It's all over the place. So it's the default position almost now. To change the default position always takes a lot of time. So yeah, I agree with you that it's a big question. And many times people just come to you as an activist, come to your organization because they have one eye on the election. They're thinking. So I told you earlier that I used to organize the table of men at Makerere. What I discovered was that while I used to spend my own money to get people drinks so that they could come and attend, about 50,000 per sitting. Of course, that's a lot of money for a student who has no source of income. But around election time, so many people running for political positions would be more than willing to bankroll, to buy the drinks, whether they were running for political positions that are national. So, like Makerere has these things of councillors and all that. So that happened around 2016 because there was that 2016 general election when I was at the university. That's around the time you're having some of the most serious episodes. Then also normal elections, like student elections, you find people coming and saying, I want to run for guild, but I'll come and speak, but then I can give you some money to get you. But any time post that, or pre that, you wouldn't get anyone coming to sponsor it. So it's always important that you understand that so many people in this country, politics has been reduced to the best paying job in Uganda by far. People are resigning their doctor positions to go for politics. Prestigious lawyers with very prestigious law firms have left to go and become members of parliament. So because we pay so much attention, we give so much pride, we give so much title, privilege to people who hold political positions. And we don't do that for anyone else, not for teachers, not for university lecturers, not for, even if you're a neurosurgeon, not people who will change, transplant human brains. We cannot do that for them. We always do it for the politicians. So it's no-brainer that people will automatically use your platform as a gateway, as a launch pad for their political position, because that's where the power and money lies.
And I think, like even movements, like we must be aware of those things. People will want to ally with you, to come and be in your space because it serves their purpose, other interests.
Exactly.
So it's very important to see that and recognize it, and also maybe have some principles.
There's a thing.
Because when it's all right. It's all right when you talk about this book called New Blood by these Zambian youth who organized, different youth from different political parties, bring them in one space to recognize that we have this problem and getting to a point where they say, these are our non-negotiables. And money was one of them. We don't receive money, we don't get money involved. It's very important to actually have those principles because without them, void of them.
Be asking, so without money, how do they work? I think it was more of get a service.
I know how a lot of things happen without money, and I know money makes a lot of things. So I think I've got around without money for a very long time.
So it's very important for us to do that. Like if you don't have those principles, trust me, it doesn't matter how good your
How
message
passionate
is,
you
how
are
powerful
about
and
the thing.
someone will
I've
come
to
with
realize
their
that,
interests,
yeah.
and you will get co-opted, you'll be diverted. And
you
like
know
you said,
what's
even
so
funders,
easy? It's so easy to fake concern about an issue. Like, for example, this is a junta, Museveni must, step down. And it's so easy to control. But it's so hard to go by a principle. You get? For example, if they say there is no money and your intention was to get money, you cannot fake it for so long. Because over the way, people are going to come willing to give you the money. You get?
yeah, and also like if you go back to even the Youth for Parliament,
Yes.
that was a big
contentious
conflict.
issue.
Like
Yeah.
they had a conflict around the money issues. Like, how do you expect us to do this without the money? And the founders, the founding members, stood by those principles, and those who did not agree walked away. But it was still a successful campaign.
And that's what I wanted to tell you when I interrupted you, that at Makere Debating Union, we have this culture where we invite, for example, you could invite Toko, you could invite the National Youth Chairperson, what's his name? Eyeru. And when they come to that place, it's not about, we don't care if you've given us which amount of money. First of all, we don't eat at that place. It's just people genuinely interested in having conversation who come there. But there will never be like, oh, let's try to treat this person well because they are a member of parliament. It's hard conversations. Like, you a thief, you're doing A, B, C, D, and young people go research because the topic is shared beforehand and stuff like that. So I think more of such conversations, are supposed to be had. For example, in Toko's thing that she's telling us about, okay, what would the dynamics change if this guy finally this time around contributed some money, or would you be still able to speak boldly, would the people speak still boldly about the mistakes or faults this person has committed at the end of the day? I think that's one way where young people can prevent being, bought into the system that, here is the money you contributed, but even I feel there should be a place where you don't allow that person to contribute in whatever way possible. Me, that's my radical thinking.
That's the thing, but you see, there's a group of young people who meet routinely. They haven't met in a while, or at least they haven't attended in a while. Similar ideas. So they've hosted people like Amama Mbabazi, Norbert Mao, even Kenyans they go across, Kezabu, so many big name people. But what I discovered with them is that each time they are going to host someone, and the person is more like a government person, I'll first receive a phone call from the convener, Toko, you don't have to ask certain questions.
Yeah.
You know how hard it was. You know how hard it was to get this person here and all that. And I keep telling them, you see, you can lie to yourself. This person has all the platform to go and say those things every day. Speak about his good side. Yeah. But you'll do him a favor if he's mentioned in a corruption scandal, and then you come and say, we're glad to host you, Honorable Minister, but can you tell us something about this corruption scandal? In any case, if he isn't
guilty,
he has the leeway then to explain himself out of the situation, to convince you and say, see, I took the money, but this is the part of the picture. This is why I took the money. If he convinces you to believe that, then it's good. If he doesn't, the problem is surely with him.
Yeah. So just set the boundaries.
That's true. Have your principles.
Yeah,
have your
don't
boundaries.
negotiate them because if you do, then I mean, why even that space?
Yeah, and
that's for praise tomorrow.
That for me is the problem with a lot of people say that activists don't want to engage government people and all that, which is false. We've hosted a number of Twitter spaces and other discussions, and we have people from government spokespersons, ministers, and all that, and we bring them on board because we know how important it is to engage them. We don't create an echo chamber where
you exclude them and just say.
But the problem is also that you must acknowledge that with especially the Ugandan leadership, most times when you engage them, they begin from a point of, can I co-opt them?
Thank you.
So when you look at people, opposition people over the last maybe like 20 years who got really close to the regime, they ended up in the regime, whether it's the Democratic Party, whether it's the Uganda People's Congress, whether it's Betty Kamia and her Uganda Federal Alliance, and there've been a number of them, including rebels that fought against the government. Now, it's not that those people have a problem. It is that the system does not believe in negotiation. The system believes in co-opting people. That if Toko is criticizing me, okay, now Toko, can you come and we meet? And then they say, Toko, it's a carrot or stick. If you criticize me, I'm going to arrest you and beat you and all this. But also I can make you this political
position. We experienced
now
that.
so many people just take the line of, oh, they don't want to negotiate. For them, it is a hard line. They are radicals. Of course, being radical, the word radical has been bastardized, not just in Uganda, but across the world. It's a very beautiful word. It's one of the words I like most. If I'm to pick from Trump, it's my best word in the dictionary.
Keep sharing your best word. There is a word that you said was your best word that used to describe a lot of things, but you can continue.
No, for me, my best word in the dictionary is radical. Because I believe, it was...
Rogue! That was the word.
No, I use the word rogue a lot to describe people who are rogues, people who are unprincipled. But you see, it was Nnamdi Azikiwe. You know Nnamdi Azikiwe? He was a Nigerian liberation struggle, who I think was Nigeria's founding father, in a way. He said that you don't tell a woman whose house is burning and the baby is inside to be moderate in how they pick the baby. You don't tell a man whose child is dying because there are no drugs in the hospital to be lenient, not to be too radical with how they get their kid healed. You get, because see, if you don't want people to be radical, don't make them radical. If you do radical things, people are going to become radical. It's not me who invented science, but science says every action is going to be equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah, I was saying that co-opting thing is so real, because when we're organizing for the first march to Parliament, we actually sat down and we're going to try to do things by the book, write to the police and everything like that. And the police agreed to meet us. We go there, they take away our phones, they do everything. And you'd expect in the meeting it's going to be, how do we facilitate the protest? It was, drop this, what do you want, such that we give it to you. Blah, blah. And when we refuse, he's all right, it's stick or carrot. Okay, fine, we shall kill you, we shall beat you. I think what happened in Kenya, we shall do worse than that. This is not Kenya. So it really happens. There is no place for negotiation.
Yeah, thank you very much. This was such an amazing conversation. Give us just a few parting shots to your fellow youth, student organizers.
So I have more questions than answers, most specifically, maybe like more youth outside there. And sometimes you're asking yourself, what is that magic bullet that can change the system, that can make it better? Is it protest? Is it negotiation? What is it? What is it? And I have those questions too, despite being someone that believes in protests, uses different forms of nonviolent resistance to try and, try to change the status quo. But there's one thing I'm sure of, that status quo can't change unless there's a certain force acting on it. So instead of just sitting back and hoping that something changes, suddenly we have jobs, hospitals are better, MPs in parliament stop stealing, your mother, father is not having their land grabbed from them, hoping and wishing. Start acting. Find something that you can do to change that situation. And it doesn't have to be Toko who is famous or Praise who is famous, the celebrity activists. Some of the greatest changes have come from personal experiences of people. A little boy who said, I want to change how people get water in my community. A girl who said, let me walk out of this toxic relationship where I was being beaten, and create this change, this domino effect of change. So that's where the change starts from. Sometimes we look at the president, let's change the president. But the president is just one person in a whole system, and fighting that system starts from the grassroots. So I'll conclude by saying, do something about the status quo if you want it to change in the first place.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do something about the status quo, and together with all our voices, we can effect the change that we desire in our communities. Thank you very much, Toko. Thank you very much, Praise, for being here today.
Thank you for hosting.
Until next time, bye.
Bye-bye.